Have you ever stopped to think why sometimes being a kind person and doing good for someone can, in return, stir up strange feelings, even undeserved hate or contempt? Why, when you offer a sincere gesture, a genuine smile, or selfless help, do some people seem to pull back, mistrust, or even attack you? It seems like a paradox, doesn't it? After all, kindness should open doors, build bonds, and create reciprocity. Yet, reality often confronts us with the opposite. Kindness can be seen as weakness, leading to sidelong glances and even enmity. Subscribe to the channel and give it a like to access more stories like this. What's going on inside these people who can't accept your best? What is this intense reaction that turns kindness into a target? And more importantly, how can you deal with this to preserve your integrity without becoming a hostage to others' shadows? This is a fascinating and profound topic where psychology and philosophy meet to reveal the most hidden aspects of the human soul, the internal wounds that inflict rejection as an unconscious reaction. If you've experienced this, if you feel this confusion, stick with me until the end, because this video will open doors to a unique and transformative understanding. We'll delve into the concepts of Carl Gustav Jung, one of psychology's deepest thinkers, explore his ideas on the shadow, the persona, projection, and the path of individuation. And what's more, you'll discover how your authentic kindness can be an act of courage, a powerful decision to free yourself from others' expectations and the fear of judgment. Before we continue, if you're interested in self-knowledge, deep psychology, and emotional development, go ahead and like this video, share your experiences in the comments, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any content that will truly impact how you see life. To begin unraveling this mystery, we need to talk about a central concept in Jungian psychology, the shadow. Carl Jung taught us that we all carry a hidden part within us, a dark region of our psyche where feelings, thoughts, and impulses that we reject and repress are stored. The shadow isn't just what we consider bad, but everything we deny exists within us, traits, emotions, desires that we don't accept because they hurt our self-image or social norms. Imagine the shadow as the invisible side of a full moon. No matter how much light shines, this part remains hidden, silent, yet strongly present. Everyone has their shadow, and it often manifests in disguised ways: jealousy, anger, envy, fear, self-criticism, or even the rejection of what others represent, especially if it's something they can't recognize in themselves. When you act with authentic kindness, you're projecting light and acceptance, but this can trigger the shadow's reflection in others. Why? Because, upon encountering your goodness, the other person sees what they deny within themselves, what they don't accept possessing. The kindness you offer is a mirror that reveals their own incompleteness, like a wound that hurts precisely because it hasn't healed. This phenomenon explains why, instead of gratitude, we often encounter resistance or even hostility. The other's shadow feels threatened, uncomfortable in its own territory. A simple act of kindness can turn into an emotional earthquake because it confronts what the person can't see in themselves. At this moment, what was meant to be a gesture of love becomes a painful trigger. What if we could see these negative behaviors as signs that the other person is in internal suffering? If we understand that this apparent hatred is, in fact, an unconscious cry for help, we can make space for compassion without sacrificing ourselves. Maintaining kindness but with awareness is the first step to avoid being hurt by this experience. Let's delve a bit deeper into this intriguing dynamic: psychological projection. Jung defined projection as the mechanism by which we attribute to others what we reject within ourselves. In other words, everything your friend, colleague, or even a stranger hates about you is actually a part of them that they don't recognize and reject. Imagine someone struggling with deep feelings of inferiority, who, faced with that, sees your self-confidence and kindness as a direct threat. This person can't admit their internal vulnerability, so unconsciously they project their discomfort onto you, turning your kindness into an object of resentment. When someone makes you the enemy without clear reasons, they're actually dealing with internal pains that haven't been faced. The kindness you express, which is genuine to you, activates an uncomfortable mirror that this person prefers to avoid. It's as if your light highlights the darkness they work so hard to hide. It's important to note that this process is unconscious. People rarely do this consciously or maliciously. It's an automatic reflex, a defense mechanism to protect fragile self-esteem and the parts of the shadow that haven't yet been integrated. When you understand this, you can stop taking what they say or do personally. Visualize this dynamic as a game of mirrors in a dark room. You are the light, the kindness. The other reflects their own shadow in that light, potentially unleashing anger, criticism, or contempt. But this reflection isn't about you. It reveals a much greater truth about the human psyche and the internal mechanisms that distance us from our authenticity. Now let's consider the third deep layer of this issue, our social need to wear masks. Jung called this mask the persona, the facade we present to the world to be accepted, admired, or simply to survive socially. The persona is built based on external expectations, on the image we want or need to convey to others. Most of the time, this persona is a carefully crafted character that can hide true feelings and desires, because, deep down, we're afraid of rejection or judgment. But when someone shows up being simply genuine, transparent, and kind without fear of showing their essence, this can shatter the illusion of the other person's persona. Imagine you're in an environment full of people wearing social masks to hide their insecurities and internal conflicts, and someone arrives who isn't afraid to be themselves. For those trapped in this fragile construct, this authenticity can be perceived as a direct threat, an exposure that shines a light on what they try to hide at all costs. This threat can trigger an attacking response, even without the person being fully aware of it. Because authenticity, by becoming a mirror, challenges the carefully sculpted social character that depended on denying the shadowy part and imperfections. Conflicts in social relationships often arise from this invisible tension between persona and authenticity. True kindness, authenticated by the desire to be truthful and integral, pokes at the wound that many prefer to keep closed. This explains why sometimes, when you're kind without masks, you encounter a wall of rejection or incomprehension. If we reflect on this, we'll realize that the key isn't to change yourself to please, but to strengthen your own authenticity and understand the limits where kindness becomes a reflection that the other isn't yet ready to face. Because what we reject or attack in others usually says a lot about what we refuse to accept within ourselves. There's something deeply archaic in how we deal, socially and emotionally, with those who dare to be different, especially when that difference shines. In ancient societies, it was common to choose a symbolic figure, the so-called scapegoat, to bear the sins and guilt of the collective. This figure was literally burdened with everything the community didn't want to face, and then was sacrificed or expelled in a ritual of collective purging. What if I told you that this pattern still exists? No longer with explicit rituals, but unconsciously internalized. In many family, social, religious, or corporate groups, there's still a search for a symbolic target for the unresolved insecurities of the majority. The figure of the good, kind, and integral person often fills this role, not because there's something wrong with them, but precisely because there's something too right. Authentic kindness, the kind that doesn't serve egos but expresses itself naturally, can be seen as a silent affront to the coded system of rewarded cruelty, narcissistic individualism, and emotional manipulation that governs many social spaces today. When you refuse to play the game of appearances, to flatter, to compete, to seduce with hidden intentions, you disrupt the collective ritual of the social ego. And what does the group do? It reacts as it has always reacted for millennia, by choosing a culprit, a symbol, the stranger who needs to be silenced. This phenomenon is even more intense when you insist on keeping your conscience clear. By acting with consistency, you become a living reminder of others' inconsistency. Your mere presence, without needing to say anything, activates a deep, latent discomfort, and then comes the distancing, the contempt, or even the direct attack. It's not personal. It's archetypal. The collective shadow needs a receptacle. And if you're strong enough not to renegotiate your lucidity or betray your essence, there will be times when this role is thrust upon you. The difference lies in how you deal with this collective projection. You are not the goat. You don't have to carry that weight. You just reflect without absorbing. Because true light doesn't seek approval, it just illuminates, even when it bothers eyes accustomed to the dark. But not all kindness is genuine, and here's a crucial point. There's a type of goodness that, despite seeming noble, carries a silent poison. It's conditional kindness, an apparently altruistic gesture with a hidden desire for acceptance, control, or validation. Not because the person is being falsely good, but because they've often been conditioned to believe they need to please to be loved. Have you ever caught yourself saying yes when you wanted to say no? Have you ever stayed silent to avoid conflict? Have you offered help hoping, deep down, to be recognized or valued afterward? This type of behavior, even disguised as generosity, is rooted in a syndrome that Jung already intuited, the helper complex, or the savior neurosis. People conditioned to this pattern live a deep internal drama. They believe they need to serve to be worthy, that love needs to be earned, that affection is a reward, not a right. And so they develop a strategic unconscious kindness. They are the good ones who secretly want to be chosen, loved, saved. But the problem with this is that when the help isn't recognized, when the other doesn't respond as expected, this pseudo-kindness turns into frustration, resentment, or a feeling of ingratitude. Because deep down there was a silent emotional exchange, an invisible contract. I give you love, and you give me belonging. This kindness isn't compassionate, it's needy. Jung was clear. Genuine acts aren't born from hidden desires, but from the integration of light and shadow. Being good to be loved isn't the same as being good because you are whole, because you already love yourself. When we help others without helping ourselves, we are emotionally manipulating, even without realizing it. And then sooner or later, the other person feels it. They might not be able to name it, but they'll sense there's something strange, heavy, or forced about this giving. Then comes the cruel paradox. The person who tries so hard to be accepted through kindness is precisely the one who ends up rejected. Not because the world is evil, but because this conditional kindness is, at some level, a disguised form of emotional invasion. True kindness, therefore, is born from the center, from a place of emotional sobriety. It's calm, silent, with no hidden agenda. It doesn't give to get something back. It simply offers and moves on. Recognizing this takes courage, because it confronts us with childhood wounds. We were often trained to love as a form of emotional survival, but being kind to avoid abandonment isn't love, it's fear. When you realize all this, you begin to understand that true kindness doesn't weaken you, it protects you. Because it doesn't seek a bargain, it's an expression of who you already are. And then yes, it becomes power. Perhaps the hardest thing to admit isn't the fact that we're rejected for being good, but the painful realization that often we ourselves choose who to be good to. And we choose badly, again and again. This is one of the most disturbing and liberating insights when we delve into deep psychology. The pattern of attracting people who hurt us has roots within ourselves, and usually this pattern is linked to the savior fantasy. An unhealed childhood trauma that led us to believe that if we are useful, special, and available enough, we will finally be loved by those who, deep down, never gave us the love we needed. It's an unconscious equation. If I rescue everyone, someone will rescue me in the end. And so we repeat with colleagues, friends, partners, family, the same childish script: rescue, help, save, until we suffer. We give ourselves to those who are emotionally unavailable. We cling to people who need care, not to share life, but because it gives us a temporary purpose, a relief from the constant feeling of emptiness. The question is, where does this strong desire to carry others come from? Often from the inner child who one day had to carry their own parents, emotionally unstable, depressed, aggressive, or absent. And when we grow up, we become compulsive good people. Believe me, this is not altruism. It's psychic survival. Think about it. How many people have you tried to love until you emotionally destroyed yourself? How many times have you given yourself believing you could heal the other, when in reality you were trying to heal yourself through them? This cycle is a form of emotional self-sabotage. Instead of taking responsibility for our own healing, we ironically try to save ourselves by saving someone else. But no one can rescue another from what they are not willing to face alone. Here's the cruelest trap of the rescuer pattern. The more we try to fix the other, the deeper we sink into the same hole. the more we create dependence, the more we lose connection with our own center. But here also lies the turning point. Liberation begins when we recognize this pattern, break the cycle, and exchange the compulsion to care for others for the responsibility of caring for ourselves. When we stop saving and start supporting. Being by their side without carrying them. Loving without losing ourselves. If you feel like you're living this cycle, don't be ashamed. Just wake up. Because the true rescue begins when you decide to save yourself first. And then your kindness stops being a silent cry for love and becomes an offering of abundance from someone who has already found themselves. Imagine a lit candle in the middle of a hurricane. That candle is your essence, your kindness, your clarity. But the wind-strong, chaotic, merciless is the unprocessed emotions of others, misaligned expectations, distorted judgments. If that candle isn't protected by glass, a clear outline, a firm boundary, it goes out. And the world, confused and dark, thanks it because its light made everything too clear. That's why, sooner or later, all of us who choose to live with integrity, being good but not foolish, kind but not naive, need to learn a rare and fundamental skill, the power of emotional differentiation. In psychology, differentiation is the ability to stay in contact with others without emotionally merging with them. It's maintaining your peace even when others provoke you. It's sustaining your kindness even when the world is in internal war. It's knowing where you end and the other begins. Because you see, often the biggest mistake of good people isn't feeling too much. It's feeling for others. It's trying to save another's pain as if it were your own. It's losing yourself trying to solve sufferings that didn't originate in you and cannot be healed by you. And that's where kindness loses its strength, when it turns into permeability, when it has no boundary, no outline. Jung said, "True compassion is only possible after facing one's own shadow." And that includes recognizing that being kind isn't allowing everything, that a firm no sometimes is the greatest act of compassion there is. Because when you don't set boundaries, you're not just being permissive with the other, you're being cruel to yourself. Kindness isn't passivity. Kindness is organized energy. And when it has a healthy boundary, it not only protects your integrity, it prevents others from continuing to project their unrecognized shadows onto you. The simple act of taking a stand, of saying, "I don't accept this," already breaks the unconscious dynamic of projection. The other person stops, sees themselves, confronts themselves, and then perhaps they begin their own individuation process. But even if they don't, you remain whole. The hard part isn't being good. The hard part is being good without losing yourself. Kindness with boundaries isn't coldness, it's emotional maturity. And life, when it realizes you've learned this, stops testing you through the same patterns, because you finally learned. No one can respect your essence if you don't protect it yourself. There's a type of kindness that relies on a very different place from neediness, and that place is called emotional sobriety. Living with emotional sobriety means living with your feet grounded in your own heart. It's being loving without needing to be loved back. It's being kind without needing acceptance as emotional payment. It's being able to be among confused, wounded, inconstant people and still remain whole. How many times have we tried to please, yield, smile, when deep down our soul is exhausted? How many times is our need to be good just an elegant disguise for the fear of being rejected? Moving from neediness to emotional sobriety is one of the deepest rites of psychic maturity. It means you no longer need others to authorize you to be who you are. Your kindness isn't reactive, it's expressive. It's not fueled by the performance of acceptance, but by the silent coherence of your consciousness. Jung spoke of this state as the beginning of conscious compassion, a state where love isn't desire, but perception. You see the other in their totality, light and shadow, strength and weakness, kindness and pain. And from there you act not to receive but to offer. Not because you need to, but because you are. Emotional sobriety is the ability to observe without absorbing, to feel without drowning, to love without self-annihilation. It's a state where you're no longer bothered by what others think of you, because your self-image no longer depends on applause. Of course, this sobriety doesn't come out of nowhere. It's born from internal confrontation. It requires you to go through the purgatory of real solitude, the loss of old identity, the acceptance that some bonds break when you stop pretending. But what emerges from this process is a form of freedom that is priceless. You don't become cold, you become solid. And this solidity naturally attracts those at the same level of consciousness, because when your kindness is no longer driven by fear, it can finally be pure. Think about it. Maybe the secret to a mature life isn't giving less, but giving with presence and without expectations. This is the kind of kindness that transforms. Because it doesn't hurt, doesn't invade, doesn't negotiate. It simply illuminates and moves on. Everything we've discussed so far, the shadow, projection, the persona, the savior trap, differentiation, boundaries, sobriety, leads us to a common destination, individuation. This is, according to Jung, the process by which a person becomes truly whole. Not perfect, not ideal, but integrated, aware of all their parts, lights and shadows, gifts and wounds, and yet willing to live authentically. To individuate is to become whole in a fragmented world. It's being able to be kind, spontaneous, and truthful, even if that makes us seem strange in the eyes of those who live behind masks. It's having the courage to be misunderstood, to not please, to belong only to oneself. You are not in this world to be loved by everyone. That pursuit always comes at a high cost. It demands that you betray yourself. But when you give up the impossible mission of being universally accepted, something magical happens. You find your true place. And from that place, your true kindness is born. The kind that doesn't bargain, doesn't corrupt, doesn't seduce. It simply is. The journey of individuation is, in essence, a return to the origin, but with wiser eyes. You return to yourself, not as you were, but as you've become, stronger, clearer, more compassionate. Because now you see, the hatred your kindness stirs isn't about you. It never was. It's about broken mirrors, open wounds, forgotten ghosts. It's about people who still can't stand the light, and so they try to extinguish it. But you know now, light does bother, yes. But it also reveals, and in doing so, it heals. So take a deep breath. Stop hiding so others don't feel insecure. Stop dimming your shine so no one feels outshone. Your light isn't arrogance. Your light is an invitation. It says you can too, you are too. It's all there within. Authentic kindness doesn't threaten, it illuminates. Before I finish, if this content resonated with you, if it spoke to parts of you that might have been forgotten, or that you're starting to reclaim, I invite you. Like this video, leave a comment saying which part touched your heart the most, and especially, subscribe to the channel. Here you'll always find real human and deep reflections to help you be who you already are, just with more clarity, courage, and self-love. And always remember, being who you are is your greatest power.